Quiet kid becomes bully's target. They had no idea he was a champion fighter. Marcus Taylor slouched through the crowded hallways of Westlake High, trying to make himself as small as possible. At 15, he was shorter than most boys his age and carried extra weight that rounded his face and midsection. His oversized hoodie, a deliberate choice, helped him blend into the background. That's exactly where he wanted to be, invisible. It was his third week at Westlake, and so far he'd managed to navigate the social minefield without drawing too much attention. New school, new town, new chance. His family had moved from Philadelphia to this suburban California community after his father accepted a job at the local university. Marcus had been relieved about the move. His old school held too many painful memories. Just keep your head down, don't make eye contact, get through the day. The hallway narrowed as he approached his locker, and he found himself caught behind a group of students moving at glacial pace. Reluctantly, he squeezed past them, accidentally, brushing against a tall, athletic boy with perfectly styled blonde hair. "Watch it, Tubby," the boy snapped, turning to face Marcus. Marcus recognized him immediately. Brendan Wright, senior, star quarterback, and unofficial king of Westlake High. Marcus had been warned about him by the few friendly faces he'd encountered. "Sorry," Marcus mumbled, eyes fixed on the floor. Brendan looked Marcus up and down as if truly noticing him for the first time. A slow, predatory smile spread across his face. Well, you're the new kid, right? Marcus or whatever?" Marcus nodded slightly, already calculating the fastest escape route. "I haven't seen you in the cafeteria. What do you do, pack 4 lunches?" Brendan asked, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Snickers rippled through the hallway. 2 boys flanked Brendan like loyal lieutenants. One was tall and lean with a permanent sneer. Tyler Jensen, Brendan's right-hand man. The other, Damon Rivera, was stockier, with a gold chain around his neck and a buzz cut that emphasized his square jaw. "Leave him alone, Brendan," a female voice called out. A girl with dark hair pulled into a messy bun stood nearby, arms crossed. "Don't you have anything better to do?" "Mind your business, Zoe," Brendan shot back. "I'm just welcoming the new kid." He turned back to Marcus. "Aren't I being friendly, fat boy?" Marcus said nothing, his jaw clenched tight. His hands, hidden in his hoodie pocket, had curled into fists. Old instincts surged through him, the precise knowledge of how to shift his weight, how to move, how to strike. He could visualize exactly how to take Brendan down in 3 moves. "No, not here, not now. You promised, Dad." Instead, Marcus sidestepped the group and continued to his locker, feeling their eyes on his back. His heart hammered in his chest, but not from fear, from restraint. "That's right, waddle away," Brendan called after him, triggering another round of laughter. As Marcus spun the combination lock, the girl who had spoken up, Zoe, appeared beside him. "Just ignore those jerks," she said. "Brendan thinks he owns this school because he can throw a football." Marcus glanced at her. "Thanks, but I'm fine. I'm Zoe Taylor. No relation, I'm guessing. We have English together." "Right," Marcus said, vaguely recalling her from class. "Nice to meet you. I should get going." Before she could respond, he grabbed his books and headed for his next class, leaving her standing by his locker with a puzzled expression. What nobody at Westlake High knew, what nobody could possibly guess looking at Marcus Taylor's soft exterior and quiet demeanor, was that back in Philadelphia, he had been one of the most promising junior MMA fighters on the East Coast. For 6 years, he had trained rigorously under his uncle, a former professional fighter who ran a renowned martial arts academy. Marcus had been exceptional, winning tournament after tournament in his weight class. Fighting had been his life, his passion, his identity, until the incident that had changed everything. The cafeteria at Westlake was a cavernous space filled with round tables and the cacophony of teenage voices. Marcus had scoped out a quiet corner where he could eat alone. He unwrapped his homemade sandwich and took a bite, trying to tune out the noise around him. This seat taken, Marcus looked up to find Zoe standing there, lunch tray in hand. Before he could answer, she sat down across from him. "You don't talk much, do you?" she asked, opening her milk carton. "Not really." "That's cool. Most people talk too much anyway." She took a bite of the cafeteria pizza and made a face. "This stuff should be illegal. So Philadelphia, huh? What brings you to our little corner of California?" "My dad's a professor. New job. Cool. My mom's a nurse at Valley. Medical. Dad owns a restaurant downtown, Taylor's Garden. Again, no relation." She smiled. "You should check it out sometime." Marcus nodded politely, wishing she would leave him alone. He didn't want connections. Connections led to questions, and questions led to topics he couldn't discuss. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion at a nearby table. Brendan and his crew had surrounded a scrawny freshman and were playing keep-away with his backpack. "Give it back, please," the boy pleaded, jumping futilely as Tyler held the bag above his head. "What's the magic word?" Brendan taunted. "I already said please." "Wrong answer." Brendan laughed, nodding to Tyler, who tossed the backpack to Damon. Marcus watched the scene, his appetite evaporating. The familiar weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders, the knowledge that he could stop this. In seconds, his leg bounced nervously under the table. "Aren't there any teachers around?" he muttered. Zoe shook her head. "The staff basically lets Brendan do whatever he wants because he's taking the team to state championships. It's disgusting." The freshman made another desperate grab for his backpack, but Damon shoved him hard. The boy stumbled backward and fell, his glasses skittering across the floor. The cafeteria erupted in laughter. Marcus stood up. "Don't," Zoe warned. "You'll just make yourself a target." Too late for that. Marcus walked over to where the glasses had fallen and picked them up. The cafeteria quieted as he approached the freshman and handed them back. "Thanks," the younger boy said, his face flushed with embarrassment. Marcus turned to face Brendan's group. "Give him his backpack." Brendan's eyebrows shot up in exaggerated surprise. "Look who found his voice. Tubby's got some courage." He stepped closer to Marcus, using his height advantage to loom over him. "What if I don't want to?" Marcus met his gaze steadily. "It's not yours. Neither is that sandwich you were inhaling." "But that didn't stop you," Brendan retorted, triggering snickers from his friends. Marcus remained calm, his voice even. "The backpack. Now." Something in his tone must have registered with Brendan, because a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face, but he recovered quickly, his expression hardening. "Fine, take the stupid backpack," he said, nodding to Damon, who tossed it on the floor between them. "Wouldn't want to upset the marshmallow man." Marcus bent to retrieve the backpack, maintaining eye contact with Brendan the entire time. He handed it back to the freshman, who mumbled a thank you and scurried away. "This isn't over, new kid," Brendan said quietly, for Marcus's ears only. "Not even close." Marcus returned to his table, aware that every eye in the cafeteria was on him. Zoe was looking at him with a mixture of admiration and concern. "That was either really brave or really stupid," she said. "Probably the latter," Marcus replied, packing up his half-eaten lunch. The confrontation had left him jittery, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He needed to move, to breathe, to find somewhere quiet. "I've got to go," he said, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. "Marcus," Zoe called as he walked away. "They're not going to leave you alone now, you know that, right?" He knew, of course he knew, but for the first time in months, something other than grief and guilt stirred inside him, something that felt dangerously like purpose. The gym. At Westlake High was Marcus's discovery during his first week. During fifth period, when he had a free study hall, the vast space was usually empty. Coach Reeves, a perpetually distracted man in his 50s, had given Marcus permission to use the facility as long as he didn't break anything or bleed on the mats. The day after the cafeteria incident, Marcus changed into gym clothes and made his way to the familiar sanctuary. He started with stretches, limbering up muscles that had grown soft over the past 6 months of inactivity. His body protested at first, but then muscle memory kicked in, the thousands of hours of training asserting themselves. He moved through a series of basic forms, his movements growing more fluid with each passing minute. Jab, cross, hook, front, kick, roundhouse back kick. His breath came in controlled bursts as he shadowboxed, visualizing opponents, counters, combinations. For a moment, he was back in his uncle's gym in Philadelphia, the familiar smells of sweat and disinfectant strong. In his nostrils, the sound of gloves hitting heavy bags echoing off the walls. He could almost hear his uncle's voice. "Center yourself, Marcus. Speed is nothing without balance. Power is nothing without control." Lost in the rhythm of the workout, Marcus didn't notice he had an audience until he heard slow clapping. He spun around to find Coach Reeves watching him from the doorway, an unreadable expression on his weathered face. "Interesting form," the coach commented. "That's not standard boxing or karate. MMA." Marcus nodded warily. "Thought so. You've trained before." "Competed. A little," Marcus hedged. Coach Reeves snorted. "False modesty doesn't suit you, son." "That's not a little training I just saw." He crossed his arms. "We could use someone with your skills on the wrestling team." "I don't compete anymore." "Why not?" Marcus looked away. "Personal reasons." Coach Reeves studied him for a long moment. "Fair enough, but if you change your mind, my door's always open." He turned to leave, then paused. "Word of advice, what happened in the cafeteria yesterday is all over school. Brendan Wright isn't the type to let things go. Watch yourself." After the coach left, Marcus continued his workout with renewed intensity, pushing himself harder, faster. By the end, he was drenched in sweat, his muscles trembling with exertion. It felt good, familiar, like reconnecting with a part of himself he'd buried. But as he showered and changed, the familiar darkness crept back in. The memories, the guilt, the reason he'd stopped fighting in the first place. This doesn't change anything. You're still you, still responsible. The next morning, Marcus found his locker vandalized. Someone had scrawled "pig" across it in black marker. As he stared at the crude lettering, laughter erupted behind him. Brendan and his friends stood at the end of the hallway, watching for his reaction. Marcus calmly opened his locker, exchanged his books, and walked to class without acknowledging them. Throughout the day, the harassment continued. In geometry, someone had placed an oinking toy pig on his desk. During history, spitballs rained on the back of his neck. Between classes, he was shoulder-checked so hard he slammed into a wall. Each incident tested his restraint, but Marcus held firm to his promise. No fighting, no matter what. By Friday, the bullying had escalated. Marcus found his gym clothes soaked in the shower. His lunch was knocked to the floor. Anonymous text messages from unknown numbers bombarded his phone with fat jokes and threats. Zoe continued to sit with him at lunch, despite his attempts to dissuade her. "You don't have to do this," he told her on Friday. "They'll start targeting you too," she shrugged. "They already think I'm a weird art girl, can't damage my reputation much more." She studied his face. "You look exhausted." He was. Constantly being on guard drained him. Each night he'd come home, mumble vague answers to his parents' concerned questions, and collapse into bed. "I'm fine," he insisted. "You know," Zoe said carefully, "nobody would blame you if you went to the principal." Marcus shook his head. "That would just make things worse." "Then what's your plan? Just take it forever?" He had no answer for her. After school, Marcus made his way to his locker, eager to grab his things and escape for the weekend. The hallway was mostly empty. Students had rushed out to start their weekend plans. He was so focused on the combination lock that he didn't notice the approaching footsteps until it was too late. A hard shove sent him face first into the metal door. Before he could recover, strong hands grabbed him and spun him around. Brendan stood there, flanked by Tyler and Damon. Two other football players Marcus didn't recognize blocked either end of the hallway. "End of the week, Tubby," Brendan said, his breath hot on Marcus's face. "Time to properly welcome you to Westlake." Marcus remained expressionless, though his heart rate had kicked up a notch. "I'm not looking for trouble." "Should have thought about that before you embarrassed me in the cafeteria," Brendan snarled. Marcus assessed his situation with the cold calculation his uncle had drilled into him. 5 opponents, confined space, multiple angles of attack. If he had to defend himself, he could, but someone would get hurt. Badly. "Let me go," Marcus said quietly. "This isn't worth it." "Oh, it's worth it to me," Brendan replied. He nodded to his friends. "Hold him." Tyler and Damon grabbed Marcus's arms, pinning them behind him. Brendan cracked his knuckles theatrically. "I've been waiting all week for this," he said, drawing back his fist. The first punch caught Marcus in the jaw, stomach driving the air from his lungs. He could have tensed his abdominals, could have minimized the impact, but he deliberately kept his muscles relaxed. Better to take the hit than reveal his training. "Not so tough now, are you?" Brendan taunted, landing another blow. Marcus absorbed the pain, his mind separating from his body as he'd been taught. Pain was just information. Acknowledge it, then set it aside. The next punch was aimed at his face. Pure instinct kicked in, and Marcus turned his head slightly, causing Brendan's knuckles to glance off his cheekbone rather than land squarely on his nose or eye. "Hold him still," Brendan barked, shaking out his hand. The next blow connected solidly with Marcus's jaw, snapping his head back. Copper-tasting blood filled his mouth. Something shifted inside Marcus then. A line crossed. These weren't opponents in a ring. There were no rules here, no referee to step in. This was the real world, where people got seriously hurt, where Marcus had seriously hurt someone before. "Never again, you promised." The memory of his promise gave him strength to endure the next few blows. Each impact brought him closer to the edge of his control, but he held on, refusing to fight back. "What's going on here?" The sharp voice cut through the hallway like a whip crack. The boys froze. Ms. Hargrove, the vice principal, stood at the end of the corridor, her face a mask of cold fury. Tyler and Damon immediately released Marcus, who slumped against the lockers, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. "Nothing, Miss Hargrove," Brendan said smoothly, "just messing around with our buddy." Her eyes narrowed. "My office, all of you now, As the group walked to the administration wing, Marcus dabbed at his bloody lip with his sleeve. His ribs ached with each breath, and his jaw throbbed. But physically he knew he would heal quickly. He always did. Inside her office, Ms. Hargrove questioned each boy separately. When Marcus's turn came, she studied his injuries with a critical eye. "Mr. Taylor, would you like to tell me what happened?" Marcus shrugged. "Like Brendan said, just messing around." Her expression hardened. 5 boys messing around, and you're the only one injured. Do you take me for a fool? No, ma'am. These boys were assaulting you. I need you to tell me the truth so I can take appropriate disciplinary action. Marcus met her gaze steadily. "With all due respect, Ms. Hargrove, if you punish them, it will only make things worse for me when they come back. So you're refusing to report them?" "Yes," she sighed, removing her glasses to pinch the bridge of her nose. "I can't force you to file a complaint, Mr. Taylor, but I strongly urge you to reconsider. May I go now? My dad's waiting to pick me up." After a long moment, she nodded. "Go to the nurse first. Get those injuries documented, even if you won't tell me who caused them." As Marcus left the office, he found Brendan waiting outside. The others had already gone. "This isn't over," Brendan hissed, quiet enough that no one else could hear. "Monday after school behind the gym, just you and me." Marcus said nothing, simply walked past him toward the nurse's office. But inside, something had shifted. A resolve had crystallized. He was tired of being a punching bag, tired of holding back, tired of letting bullies dictate the terms of his existence. Monday would be different, not because he would fight back, but because he would end this one way or another. Over the weekend, Marcus could barely focus on anything. His parents had been horrified by his injuries, and he'd fabricated a story about tripping during gym class. He wasn't sure they believed him, but they didn't press the issue. On Saturday morning, despite his aching body, he went for a long run, pushing himself until his lungs burned and his legs trembled. Then he found a secluded corner of the local park and practiced meditation techniques his uncle had taught him, centering, calming, preparing. By Sunday evening, Marcus had reached a decision. He couldn't avoid the confrontation with Brendan, but he could control how he handled it. Monday dawned clear and bright, a mockery of his dark mood. Marcus moved through his classes like a ghost, barely registering the material or the concerned glances from teachers who noticed his bruised face. At lunch, Zoe gasped when she saw him up close. "What happened to you?" "Nothing important." "This doesn't look like nothing," she insisted, gently touching the bruise on his cheek. "It was Brendan, wasn't it?" When Marcus didn't answer, her eyes flashed with anger. "That's it, I'm reporting this." "No," Marcus said firmly, grabbing her wrist as she started to stand. "Please, I need to handle this my way." Something in his tone made her sit back down. "What are you going to do?" "End it." The final bell rang at 3:15. Students poured out of classrooms, eager to start their afternoons. Marcus walked slowly to his locker, methodically organizing his books and homework. "You coming?" He turned to find Zoe watching him anxiously. "You should go home," he told her. "Not a chance. Whatever you're planning, I'm not letting you face those jerks alone." "Zoe, save it, Marcus. I'm coming with you." He realized arguing would be pointless. "Fine, but stay back. Don't get involved no matter what happens." The area behind the gym was a neglected corner of campus where the dumpsters stood. It smelled of garbage and was shielded from view by the building on one side and a stand of trees on the other. The perfect spot for a fight. Brendan was already there, surrounded by his usual crew plus a handful of other students who had come to witness the confrontation. The crowd parted as Marcus approached, whispers rippling through the gathered teenagers. "Honestly didn't think you'd show," Brendan said, removing his Letterman jacket and handing it to Tyler. "Figured you'd run home crying to mommy." Marcus said nothing, simply stood there, hands at his sides. "No teacher to save you now," Brendan continued, circling Marcus like a shark. "Just you and me. Well, and all these witnesses who are going to see me teach you some respect." Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm and measured. "I'm not going to fight you, Brendan." Laughter erupted from the crowd. "Smart move, fatso. Because you wouldn't stand a chance." "I'm not fighting you because this isn't a fair fight," Marcus continued, "and you're not worth the trouble." Brendan's face darkened with rage. "What did you just say?" "You heard me. This ends today. Not because you beat me up, but because I'm done letting you think you have power over me." "Big talk from someone who's about to get his ass kicked," Brendan scoffed, though there was a note of uncertainty in his voice now. "Go ahead," Marcus said, spreading his arms. "Hit me again. Prove what a big man you are by beating up someone who won't fight back. Show everyone here exactly who you really are." Confusion flickered across Brendan's face. This wasn't following his script. Marcus was supposed to be scared, supposed to beg or try to run. "Stop stalling and fight me," Brendan demanded. No. The single word hung in the air between them, a challenge more potent than any physical threat. Brendan lunged forward with a wild haymaker. Marcus shifted slightly, not enough to completely avoid the blow, but enough to take it on his shoulder rather than his face. "Fight back," Brendan shouted, throwing another punch. This time, Marcus moved with fluid precision, sidestepping just enough that Brendan's fist whistled past his ear. He didn't counter, didn't strike back, just evaded, his movements efficient and practiced. A murmur went through the crowd as they recognized that Marcus's movements were too controlled to be luck. Brendan, sensing he was losing the upper hand, charged forward with a flurry of punches. Marcus slipped each one with minimal movement, conserving energy while making Brendan expend his. "Stand still and fight me, you coward," Brendan bellowed, his face red with exertion and frustration. "I don't need to fight you to win," Marcus replied calmly. "You're doing a fine job of defeating yourself." Brendan roared and charged like a bull. This time, Marcus executed a perfect, defensive maneuver, using Brendan's momentum against him. With a subtle shift of his stance and a carefully timed pivot, he redirected Brendan's charge. The larger boy stumbled past him and crashed into the dumpster with a resounding clang. Gasps and scattered applause came from the onlookers. Brendan scrambled to his feet, humiliation burning in his eyes. "What the hell was that? What are you?" "Someone who knows how to fight but chooses not to," Marcus answered, his voice carrying to every person in the crowd. "I trained in mixed martial arts for 6 years. Won regional championships in Philadelphia. I could have laid you out the first day you pushed me, but I didn't because I made a promise to never use my skills to hurt people again." The revelation sent a shockwave through the gathered students. Tyler and Damon exchanged uneasy glances. Zoe stared at Marcus with wide eyes. "You're lying," Brendan said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Am I? Take another swing and find out." For a tense moment, it seemed Brendan might accept the challenge. Then, his shoulders slumped, the fight visibly draining out of him. "This is bullshit," he muttered, retrieving his jacket from Tyler. "Not worth my time." As Brendan pushed his way through the crowd, Marcus called after him, "Brendan." The other boy paused but didn't turn around. "It's over. All of it. You leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. Same goes for that freshman and anyone else you've been targeting. Got it?" A long moment passed before Brendan gave a barely perceptible nod and stalked away, his friends trailing after him. The crowd began to disperse, excited chatter filling the air. Zoe approached Marcus, a million questions in her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "It's not something I talk about, but if everyone knew you were some kind of fighting champion, they'd treat me differently. Expect things from me. Ask questions I don't want to answer." Marcus sighed, suddenly exhausted. "I just want to be normal, Zoe." "Normal is overrated," she replied with a small smile. "But I get it. For what it's worth, the way you handled that was pretty amazing." As they walked back toward the main building, Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time since moving to California, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he could start fresh here. Not by forgetting his past, but by choosing how it would shape his future. The next morning, Marcus went to his locker with trepidation, half expecting to find new vandalism or face another confrontation. Instead, he found a small group of students waiting for him, including the freshman he'd helped in the cafeteria. "Is it true?" the younger boy asked eagerly. "About the martial arts?" Marcus nodded reluctantly. "Could you teach me?" the boy blurted out. "Just some basics for self-defense?" Before Marcus could answer, another student chimed in. "Me too. After what you did with Brendan, that was sick." "I don't," Marcus began. "We could start a club," someone suggested. "Get Coach Reeves to sponsor it." Marcus looked at their hopeful faces and felt something unexpected, a sense of purpose. For so long, he'd been running from who he was, what he could do. Maybe it was time to stop running. "I'll think about it," he said finally. In English class, Marcus slipped into his usual seat. A moment later, Brendan entered the room. A hush fell as he walked past Marcus's desk. Their eyes met briefly, and Brendan gave a small nod, not friendly but respectful, and acknowledgement. After class, Coach Reeves caught Marcus in the hallway. "Heard about what happened yesterday," the coach said without preamble. Marcus tensed. "Am I in trouble? For not fighting?" "Hardly." Coach Reeves's weathered face broke into a rare smile. "Actually, I wanted to offer you something. My assistant coach position opened up for the wrestling team." Pays not much, just a stipend, but it comes with college recommendation letters and looks good on applications. I'm only a sophomore, Marcus pointed out. Old enough to know what you're doing. Those moves yesterday? Impressive restraint. That's the kind of maturity I want around my athletes. The coach handed him a folder. Think about it. Forms are inside if you're interested. At lunch, Marcus found that his usual isolated corner table had been invaded. Zoe sat there, as always, but she'd been joined by several other students, including the freshman from the cafeteria incident. Hope you don't mind, Zoe said, eyes twinkling. Seems you've become popular overnight. As Marcus sat down, uncomfortable with the attention but oddly touched, he spotted Brendan across the cafeteria. The quarterback sat with his usual crew, but something was different. The loud boasting and intimidating behavior that usually characterized their table was subdued. Later, as Marcus was leaving school, he found Tyler waiting by the front gates, alone. Got a minute? The taller boy asked. Marcus nodded cautiously. Brendan would never admit this, but Tyler hesitated. What you did yesterday, not fighting back, that took guts. More than most of us have. He scuffed his shoe against the pavement. Anyway, truce, I guess. No more problems from us. Truce, Marcus agreed, extending his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Tyler shook it. As Tyler walked away, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from his dad. How was school today? For the first time in months, Marcus found himself smiling as he typed his reply. Better, a lot better. That evening, Marcus sat at his desk, the coach's folder open before him. The assistant coach application form was simple enough, but it represented something much bigger. A choice to step back into the world he'd retreated from after the accident in Philadelphia. The memory still haunted him. The tournament final. The illegal move his opponent had used. The red haze of anger that had overtaken Marcus. The sickening crack as his countermove went too far. His opponent's screams as his arm broke in 2 places. The horrified faces in the crowd. His uncle's disappointment. The 6-month suspension from competition that had ultimately become permanent when Marcus vowed never to fight again. But today had shown him that his training didn't have to be a source of shame or danger. It could be a force for good, for protection, for teaching, for standing up to bullies without becoming one. Marcus picked up a pen and began to fill out the form. As he wrote, he felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope, not because he'd won a fight, but because he'd found a way to remain true to himself while refusing to be a victim. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Rumors about his past would spread. Questions would be asked. Brendan and his crew might decide the truce wasn't worth honoring. But for the first time since arriving at Westlake High, Marcus felt ready to face whatever came. He was done hiding, done pretending to be less than he was, done living in fear of his own potential. Marcus Taylor, former champion, new assistant coach, increasingly confident sophomore, was finally ready to begin again. Well, now I want to know, what's your opinion about this story? Leave a comment, we'd love to hear from you, and tell us which city you watched this video from. And it's not over yet. There's another powerful story playing on your screen right now. Click on it. I'm waiting for you.